Sea Limited is an extremely fast-growing gaming, e-commerce, and fintech company who has the potential to become the next Amazon. And in this video, I'm going to be doing a full breakdown of the company and their stock. Sea Limited just released their earnings report for Q1 2021, and in that report, they showed how they managed to grow revenue 147% year over year, while growing their gross profit 212% in just 1 year. They have also strengthened their grip on the digitization of Southeast Asia, growing their mobile gaming, their e-commerce, and their finance businesses by over 100% each. Hey everyone, and welcome to FinTech. And in this video, I'm going to be going over the background of Sea Limited as a company, what they do, as well as analyzing their most recent earnings report. Finally, I'll talk about what it will take for Sea to succeed going forward, as well as let you know if I personally am investing in the company. Also, please hit the like button if you appreciate me reading Sea Limited's entire earnings call transcript for Q1 2021 so that you don't have to. This video is totally free, and all I ask is a quick like in return. So with that said, let's first dive into Sea's background as a company. Sea Limited is the largest internet company in Singapore, with a market cap of over $117 billion, but they weren't always the behemoth that they are today. In fact, they started out in 2009 as a relatively humble video game developer, operating under a different name, Garena. They later changed their name to Sea Limited in 2017, but they kept the name Garena as the name of their video game portion of their business. They spent the first several years of their existence solely making video games, and it was not until 2012 that they launched their first breakthrough product, Garena Plus, which was social media mixed with a video game platform. It was kind of like Steam meets Discord if you're familiar with those two apps. They quickly built themselves into an absolute powerhouse in Southeast Asia, introducing local language games such as League of Legends and FIFA to the local markets. They later started developing their own games from scratch, and these were also wildly successful. In 2017, they launched Garena Free Fire, which quickly became the #1 mobile gaming app in the entire world in both 2019 and 2020, and not just in Asia, that was international. That game is still the highest earning mobile game in many parts of the world. In 2014, the World Startup Report ranked them as the most valuable internet company in Singapore at a valuation of $1 billion, and by 2015, just 1 year later, that valuation had ballooned all the way to $2.5 billion. In addition to developing video games and hosting their own gaming platform, they also run major gaming events and tournaments, such as the Free Fire League Latino America 2021. They even own their own esports stadium in Taipei. But though they were quickly becoming a very big deal in the video game space, they had ambitions far beyond just gaming. Once their existing business started throwing off some serious cash flow, rather than just sitting back and letting the money roll in, they decided to take that money and invest it into new ventures, including their new e-commerce business. In 2015, Sea Limited launched Shopee, a mobile-first, social-first shopping platform which quickly caught on in both Singapore and Indonesia. It succeeded due to the company's deep understanding of local culture and their high-quality platform, despite attempts by Amazon and Alibaba to muscle into their market. Shopee started out as a purely customer-to-customer platform, kind of like early eBay or Poshmark in the United States. Since then, it has also expanded into business-to-customer sales as well, so something a little bit more similar to Amazon. And in addition to e-commerce, Shopee also provides a built-in payments platform for security, as well as their Shopee Guarantee, which lets customers know that they can buy items on the platform without worrying about getting ripped off. More recently, they have stepped up their efforts in local communities to try to train small business owners to launch items on their platform and expand globally using digitization. This benefits Shopee as they gain new businesses on their platform, and it also benefits local businesses who are able to scale their business in ways they never could have before. At this point, Shopee is already the leader in Taiwan, Southeast Asia, and Indonesia in terms of mobile shopping apps, and they have recently started to expand outside that region as well. One area where they have seen some early success is Brazil, where Shopee has quickly become a major competitor to that region's largest shopping platform, Mercado Libre. In 2018, they also launched the China Marketplace portal, giving customers access to Chinese merchants without needing to pay the usual high taxes and fees associated with Singapore and the Philippines. But if that wasn't enough, Sea Limited has also used Shopee Pay, which is the payments processor for their e-commerce platform, to launch a third arm of their business. SeaMoney is Sea Limited's new digital financing company, which, while smaller than both Garena and Shopee, has a lot of potential and already processes $3.4 billion through their mobile wallet services quarterly. Right now, SeaMoney has functionality as a payments processor, as a digital mobile wallet, as well as a financing company. And while this this is a newer offering and it doesn't really move the needle in terms of revenue compared to Garena and Shopee, it does have a ton of future potential and a potential for much higher margins than their existing business. So that's the rundown of what Sea does. It's a video game company turned e-commerce company turned finance company. But having a ton of different businesses doesn't mean anything if they're not performing well. So now let's take a look at Sea Limited's Q1 2021 earnings, seeing what the numbers tell us about their performance. First, looking at their overall revenue, they grew their revenue to $1.76 billion this quarter, an increase of 147% year over year. At the same time, they increased their gross profit to $645 million, an increase of 212% year over year. So as they are scaling into a bigger and bigger company, they are also increasing their profitability at the exact same time. Looking next at just their Garena gaming business, they increased their number of active users 61% year over year to a total of 650 million users. This is an increase from both a year ago as well as from what they had last quarter, where they had just 611 million users. This shows that this growth in their user base is not solely driven by the lockdown and has continued even until the last quarter. And looking at their paying users, the growth looks even better. They grew their number of paying users up to 80 million, an increase of 124% year over year. So not only are they growing their user base, they're also increasing the percentage of that user base that is paying. Again, kind of going along with that theme of increased profitability as they scale. Looking next at Shopee, their e-commerce business, they increased their gross number of orders by 153% year over year and by 10% quarter over quarter. Their gross merchandise value, which is basically the value of all the different items that were sold on their platform, increased to $12.6 billion, an increase of 103% year over year. We'll talk about how important growing this number is later in the video, but basically with e-commerce, the bigger you can grow, the better your margins are. Their revenue for their e-commerce segment was $922 million in the quarter, an increase of 250% year over year. This segment drove most of the revenue growth for the company this past quarter. Finally, moving on to their last business segment, SeaMoney. This last segment is much smaller than the other two segments and doesn't really affect their total revenue numbers that much. They had a net loss of $156 million in this segment last quarter, and they didn't report revenues for this business. Most of that loss appears to be coming from sales and marketing expenses, which increased 113% year over year for this segment. That being said, they increased the total payment volume on their digital wallet to $3.4 billion, an increase of 200% from a year ago. They also now have 26.1 million users of this service, up 145% from a year ago. So while their sales and marketing expenses increased by over 100%, the number of users they have on their platform as well as their payments volume increased even more quickly, so I'm okay with that number. This increase in expenses follows the same pattern as we see with both Garena and Shopee, with both of those business segments also increasing their sales and marketing expenses by over 100% in the past year. This contributed to the company's overall cost of revenue increasing to $1.1 billion this year, more than double where it was a year ago. And this is also why the company is currently running at a net loss of $422 million, which is down 50% year over year. So those numbers are a lot to take in. They're more than doubling their revenue, but they're also spending a ton of money to do it. So should we be concerned about those numbers? I am actually not super concerned about these losses, and there's two main reasons for that. First of all, while their expenses are increasing, we're seeing their revenues as well as number of users increase even faster across all three of their business segments. This makes the path to profitability pretty clear for Sea Limited. Just grow as big as possible. And then this ties in with the second reason. E-commerce requires scale to be profitable. As a small to medium-sized e-commerce business, your margins are terrible because you have to compete on both price as well as shipping. We saw this same scenario with Amazon. When they first started out, they were actually losing money for the first 2 decades of their existence. But over time, they were able to improve their margins by vertically integrating, offering their own air transport, packaging their own boxes, and even having their own delivery drivers deliver boxes to people's doors. For Amazon, scaling large enough created margin all on its own. And so for Sea Limited, as they continue to grow, they're going to need to hit massive scale before we probably see profitability from their e-commerce business. But even though I don't see these increasing costs as a major risk, there are still challenges facing the company. The first major challenge I see is market size. Now, wait a minute, you might ask. Mobile gaming, e-commerce, and finance, these are huge markets. How could they ever have a problem with market size? Well, the issue is, while Sea Limited is obviously killing it in Southeast Asia and the couple other markets that they've entered, they have not been competing on a global stage with Amazon and Alibaba. And while the Association for Southeast Asian Asian nations see robust growth in that region's future, including 6% GDP growth projected from 2020, that growth is not going to be enough to sustain Sea Limited's growth over time. In early 2020, the entire internet economy in Southeast Asia was estimated at $100 billion, and that's expected to increase to $300 billion by 2025. I think that Sea will continue to dominate their market. They talked about on their earnings call investing in local businesses, both by teaching them how to scale using the Shopee platform, as well as helping both young and old people develop skills to succeed in the digital marketplace. Long term, I think that Sea is going to become the de facto face of digitalization in this region in the world, in the same way that Alibaba and Tencent were the face of digitalization in China. But the real question is, how can they perform internationally outside of their home region? Well, we've seen some major success from their Garena gaming segment, with Garena Free Fire being the highest earning mobile game in Latin America, Southeast Asia, and India. They have also used a somewhat unique approach in trying to tailor their offerings to the local culture. They introduced in-game characters based on popular local celebrities in both Vietnam and Egypt, and they also introduced community events in India around the Holi festival. They also hosted the Free Fire League Latino America in 2021. But that also kind of ties in with the second challenge that Garena may face. Can they continue to grow without Garena Free Fire? In general, mobile games have a shelf life of maybe a few years, and while there have been some exceptions that have managed to last for over a decade, it's a little bit risky to bank on that. Leadership says that they're still at an early stage in their life cycle, but ideally we would like to see new successful games being launched out of Garena. And while I have confidence that they can do this, it's still a risk that we should be aware of. Outside of gaming, we have also seen some early successes with expanding Shopee outside of the Southeast Asian region, especially in Brazil. On the earnings call, the CEO called out Brazil specifically as an area where Shopee is seeing some success, where they've become one of the top shopping apps in that market. If Sea can manage to penetrate the rest of the Latin American market, this would be huge for the company, as that market is expected to grow to $116 billion worth of e-commerce by 2023, with 60% of that coming from Brazil and Mexico. Now, Sea will likely take a country-by-country approach in expanding into this region, since that's the same approach they took in Southeast Asia, and we saw in February 2021 that they have started to expand into Mexico. To help with their regional expansion, they have also launched the Regional Championships brand program, and they now give out awards like Best Product Launch and Best Tech Innovation to companies like P&G, Disney, and Samsung. This approach may help them to eventually compete even in markets that already have a dominant e-commerce player like Amazon or Alibaba. So there are a couple things that we need to watch for going forward. We need to see Garena continue to grow their user base, especially outside of just their #1 game, Garena Free Fire. Ideally, we would see them launch several other successful games over the coming years. 2, we will want to see Shopee start to launch in more diverse countries across the world, and we will want to make sure that they're being successful in the companies that they launch into. 3, we really need to see SeaMoney start to grow this year, especially as the digitization of Southeast Asia continues. We would also hope to start seeing this service launch outside that region, possibly into the same companies that already have Shopee. If Sea can accomplish these things successfully, I'm extremely bullish on their future, and I did buy into the stock. Currently, only 1.5% of my total portfolio is invested in this position, and that was mostly from money that I had left over from selling Zoom, which, if you haven't seen that video, it's worth checking out. But let me know if you have invested in Sea. Don't forget to get your 2 free stocks from Webull, valued up to $1,600 when you deposit $100. That link is in the description. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.